Hi, welcome to the Franchise Time Machine. We're about to get started, but we're going to hold off a little bit because Dr. Dynastic is going to kindly raid into us. And rather than have to explain things twice, we'll just go ahead and wait a minute here. He's doing a drawing. I won a drawing yesterday for the first time in a long time. So let's see what happens here. AW, AW wins. Nice. I actually feel like he might have won something yesterday too. He's on a roll. I'm going to start today's stream, by the way, with the amazing thing we learned during the Billy Bean and Glenn Burke stream. I told Sporer about it. He did not know that women were in the database either. So I feel like if he doesn't know, most people are not going to know. So I'm gonna do a little tangent right off the bat because I think it highlights every time we do something in the stream, we learn something amazing, and that was amazing to me. Um, so yeah, I didn't know. I've been playing this for a long time. I mean, the fact that Sporer doesn't know is kind of amazing. Um, so if he doesn't know, I don't know that many people do. And so we have Billy Bean to thank for that too. Lots to thank Billy Bean for. Really glad we did that tribute stream. Uh, and really glad that he hit that walk-off grand slam. That was amazing. And that also would not have happened if I had not screwed up the settings. Right? When we quick played game one, I didn't have that team under human control, technically. And so it didn't record footage to do a highlight stream. So without that mistake, we wouldn't have that moment to click. Dr. Dynastic, thank you for the raid. Thank you for another great stream. So I don't have giveaway packs on the stream, but I do have drops. So you will be getting your affiliate drops from me. And I have some. I normally stream at 10 p.m. Pacific time. This is a rare daytime stream because I have this content that we've been doing over the past couple weeks that I think will help a lot of people who are interested in doing experiments in the base game. And it has to do with a league full of Babe Ruths. I'm going to use this league to demonstrate to you the phenomenon that we're talking about, to show you that it exists, explain what's happening, and then I found an easy way to take care of it so you can get it to not happen. And so your experiments will work out the way you hope. That's why I've been asking affiliates to share that 2-question prediction survey, asking you to guess what would happen if there was a league full of Babe Ruths and the only pitchers in that league are the 2000 Jose Lima, who had a terrible year that year. And I'll show you what actually happens in OOTP if you don't take this step that I'm going to teach you how to do. But the first thing I want to do, after thanking Dr. Dynastic for the raid, and thank you all for being here, is show you something amazing that I learned in the stream last night. So last night, we did a tribute sim in honor of Billy Beane and Glenn Burke. If you haven't heard, Billy Beane died a few days ago. He and Glenn Burke, for a long time, were the only two openly gay former Major League Baseball players. There's been a third since. Billy Beane went on to become the vice president of diversity and inclusion for Major League Baseball. And I wanted to do a sim, where it's Billy Beane, Glenn Burke, and the other 12 openly gay former professional baseball players. And so I found a list on Outsports and found all but one of the players is in Baseball Reference and in OOTP. But the really amazing thing is, one of the players in the OOTP database is Isla Borders. And did you know that there is at least one woman in the existing OOTP historical database? You can go into any sim right now and pull her into any sim that you're doing. She's a left-handed pitcher, played independent ball. Now, she has independent league attributes, so you know she's not going to be competitive in a major league sim, but she's in there. She's competitive. She had a couple, one actually very competitive season in independent league ball, and you can pull her into any sim that you're doing in OTP. I was surprised. I thought maybe it was just me, so I asked around a little bit, and even our what is Paul Spore's title? Content director. Even Paul did not know that there is at least one woman in the OTP historical database. So I feel like we discovered something really cool last night doing that sim. So Nolan Network Podcast, who I will be rating into after this stream, by the way. He is also one of the newer West Coast affiliates, like I am. Says semi-related, did an interview back in college with the main writer for, and sorry, it got auto-modded, but I interviewed him on top of LGBT athletes and men's sports in 2015. Dude was kind of a jerk. I'm assuming that you it was the main writer for Outsport. Oh, thank you for the monthly stream. Sorry, I'm new to Twitch, so I'm a little slow on some of this stuff here. Subliminal Glory, thank you for the follow. Appreciate it. You are our 250th follow. Thank you. Yeah, Outsports. I figured it out eventually. I was hoping you weren't talking about Billy Beane. I'm glad you weren't. So we discovered Isla Borders, female left-handed pitcher is in our game. The other fun thing that happened in that stream, which I think is great for considering it was a tribute to Billy Beane and Glenn Burke, is we quick played one game and watched the highlights, hit the scores and watched the highlights. And Billy Beane hit a walk off pinch hit grand slam to win the game. So that was great. That was a lot of fun. So yeah, but getting back to our topic at hand for today, this league full of Babe Ruths. So I want to thank those of you who completed the survey. But for everyone, including those who didn't, here's what we're talking about. It's a league with two teams, and every batter in the league is Babe Ruth. Every pitcher in the league is Jose Lima. And specifically, it's the 1927 Babe Ruth who hit 60 home runs. Right, that was the standard for a long time until Roger Maris hit 61. And the 2000 Jose Lima, unfortunately, had a terrible season, especially with the gopher ball. And it's especially unfortunate. I think the previous year he was an all-star and won double-digit games, but he had a terrible 2000. So the idea was this should be a league with lots of home runs, right? You have the long-time home run king times 28, right? 14 batters per team, so there are 28 versions of him knocking around. And the only pitcher in the league had a 6.65 ERA in the season that we pulled, 48 home runs allowed, and 2.2 home runs per 9 innings. And so sent out that survey that many of you are kind enough to complete. Right, here's what it looked like. It was basically, it only had two questions. And those questions were, in this league, how many home runs will the league leader in home runs hit? And again, it'll be a Babe Ruth, but how many home runs will the league leading Babe Ruth hit? And and the second question was, what will be the batting average of the league leading Babe Ruth in batting average? Brent says you should put Hank Aaron and Roger Maris in with Ruth. Yeah, so I was actually thinking about if we have time today, doing another one of these sims on stream so you can see, so people can see how to do this, and we'll do it with the correction for normalization and without. And so here's what you guys predicted for home runs. All right, over 2/3 of you predicted that the league leader in home runs in this league would hit at least as many home runs as Babe Ruth hit in 1927, so at least 60 home runs. And before I did this sim, well, if I didn't know what was going to happen, because I discovered this phenomenon doing a different sim, but if I hadn't known it, I would have picked 80 plus because it's a 60 home run Babe Ruth, and the only person pitching in this league is throwing gopher ball. So I would have thought 80 home runs easy. It, but then here's what happened. The league leading Babe Ruth hit 26 home runs. And by the time you got to Babe Ruth number 8 in the home run race, you're down to 18. Now, I didn't do anything to adjust Babe Ruth's card, at least in terms of the hitting profiles. Now, I had to give some of the Babe Ruth's catching ability. I had to give some of the Babe Ruth's infielder ability so that we could cover those positions. But other than that, I did not touch the hitting profiles at all. And I did not touch Jose Lima at all because you can put, starters in the bullpen. So that's not a problem. And so how is it that in this league, it was a 162 game season. It was only two teams, but they played each other 162 times. Injuries were turned off. Player development was turned off. The stadium was standardized, so all the stadium factors are 1.0. And so every team has 162 games worth of stats. And all those stats came against Jose Lima. And I picked Jose Lima because I didn't want anyone to think, oh, the home run total's down because you picked some pitcher who's a sinker baller who doesn't give up home runs. No, this guy was a launching pad. And somehow the leading Babe Ruth only hit 26 home runs. Um, I don't know about you, but I was shocked when this happened. Well, this particular sprint, like I kind of knew what was going on, but the first time I ran into this phenomenon, I was shocked. But even seeing it play out, it was really surprising, even though I kind of knew it was going to happen. Okay, so the question two, 90% of you predicted that the league leading Babe Ruth would hit at least 325. That seemed highly likely, right? The real 1927 Babe Ruth hit 356. Jose Lima gave up a 313 opponent batting average. And that 313 includes scrubs. He's pitching to scrubs and, good hitters, and he's giving a 313 batting average. Yeah, Jason, it is the league totals modifiers, but I'll explain also a little more detail how it works, um, and also how you can correct for it. Brett says, I bet with more or different players, your leaders would hit more home runs. That's exactly true, and that's one of the ways early on I tried to correct for this issue. So you guys are definitely on the right track. All right, here's what happened. The league leading Babe Ruth hit 276. And by the time you get to the eighth Babe Ruth in the batting race, you're down to 253. And so it's the totals issue is exactly what's happening. So I'll show you how to get there. But in the base game, when you set up a simulation, one of the options is the league totals. And this is the way OOTP manages for things uh like dead ball era, right? To to get to a dead ball era type of environment, you have to suppress the total number of home runs in the league. And so I call it the normalization issue because I'll explain why I think of it that way. But I noticed on the forum, some people have noticed this before too, and they call it the totals issue. And the totals issue actually is more accurate because the mechanism by which this is happening is totals. So what happens is OTP is told in 2023 a a 30 team major league well in 2023 the major league should have this many home runs, and the total number there, the I think it's 5868. If you open baseball reference, that's the total number of home runs hit in 2023 is 5868. So that's what that number comes from. Now, I've seen those multipliers before, and I always thought the multipliers are just there to do, whatever kind of era correction had to be done. So if, 2023 was higher in home runs than previous seasons, then the modifier would be above one. And if it was a down year for home runs, the modifier would be below one. I thought that's how that was working. But that's not. And so I'll explain to you how it works. But fundamentally, Ezra, how are you? Welcome to the stream. Welcome to the Rare Daylight stream. Um, so what happens is OOTP is trying to manage to a certain number of home runs for the league. And if everyone in the league is Babe Ruth, then it's going to say, okay, we can't have all these Babe Ruths hitting 60 home runs or more with Jose Lima pitching to them. We have to have all these home runs kind of converge on this total. So it's going to tamp down the number of home runs hit by each Babe Ruth. Now, from a game management perspective, I can understand why it does that. Because as you move players in and out of the league, and I think we've heard some of these complaints on the perfect team side. You don't necessarily want to have your scores turning into football scores. Unless that's what you want, right? Because I think no one's going to bring in a league full of Babe Ruths wanting them to hit 26 home runs and hitting 276. If you're bringing a league full of Babe Ruths, I'm pretty sure you want them to behave like Babe Ruth. And so the first way we tried to correct for that was, um, and here I created a sim environment for this. So let me load it up here. Okay, let's go to the base game and I'll show you the first thing we tried. So if the problem was that if you bring in too many Babe Ruths, they can't all behave like Babe Ruth, then I thought, okay, well, what if for each Babe Ruth, you also bring in like a Mario Mendoza? Okay, I picked Mario Mendoza because at least when I was growing up, there was this a thing called the Mendoza line, which is slang for someone like hitting or not hitting 200. And so to me, he's like shorthand for a player who's not a very good offensive player. And so, okay, so what if for each Babe Ruth we bring in a Mario Mendoza? But the whole idea is I want Babe Ruth hitting against Jose Lima, and I just want to see like how many home runs can they hit. And so if Mario Mendoza's in the lineup, that kind of messes that up. So the idea here was, well, let's just create a league where in one sub league, so in OOTP, the American League and National League are sub leagues. So one sub league, there's going to be all these players who can't hit. And ideally, they can't field and they can't run either. The whole point is to offset the great players we're going to bring in on the experimental side. In this case, we're going to make the National League the experimental side. And so we call them the Mario Mendoza All Stars. And it's all a bunch of players who had terrible offensive seasons. Now, some of them are good. Oh, sorry, that's the experimental Braves. I'm looking for the Mendoza Red Sox. Okay. Now, some of the players are good players, like Harold Reynolds, but we picked the worst season Harold Reynolds had. And in particular, we're looking for low OPS, low batting average, low power. In some places, it was hard. Like we had to let in some players that could hit a few home runs because it was just hard to find first basemen and corner outfielders who didn't hit home runs. But we tried. And the whole idea was, okay, these two teams will play against each other in the American League, and there'll be no interleague play, so it won't interfere at all with our. Oh, why did that break? I, I thought you also do you also have Turbo, Nolan? All right, I think we're back from the ad break. All right, so yeah, so we have these two teams playing against each other. There's no interleague play, so it doesn't interfere at all with our team of Babe Ruth and Jose Limas. And when we tried this with a different experiment that had failed because of the same reason, because of the whole um, totals issue, it actually kind of worked. But in this case, it wasn't quite enough. So here's what happened when we did it this time. With these two, I refer to them kind of as control teams or baseline teams. It creates a low end baseline so that the high end experimental players can do their thing. So the home runs were up to 41, but still not what I think we should be expecting. Um, and so then we went back to the drawing board, and when we looked at, let me go back to the total screen here. So when we looked at this is when I realized, okay, these totals are not adjusting for era. They're actually adjusting for the people in the league. Hey, Minerva. We're talking about this whole totals issue and why OOTP will not let a team of Babe Ruths act like a league full of Babe Ruths act like Babe Ruth unless you kind of break the game a little bit. So I looked at this after we did the experiment and realized, okay, this is no longer an era's adjustment, even if it was before, because the home run multiplier is now 0.222. And so when you think about it, that's between a fourth and a fifth of what you would expect. And so if you apply that 0.222 and reverse it on this 26 home runs, you actually get, over 100 home runs, which doesn't seem unreasonable when you're talking about Babe Ruth hitting off of Jose Limas. And then the other thing that that caught my attention was the multiplier hit by pitches is really high. And when I looked at Jose Lima's season that year, he did not hit many batters. And so that was the other data point that helped me realize, okay, these adjustments are not for era, they're not for anything but for the players in the league. And so instead of having to do a whole control sub league, and the big thing there is we're going to have to keep adjusting the number of teams in that sub league depending on who is playing in the experimental league. Instead, the solution was much simpler. It was just change all these multipliers back to one and then turn off the auto calc. Because if you leave the auto calc turned on, as soon as you turn away from this page and come back, it'll turn these multipliers back on and it'll suppress all your home runs again or whatever it is that you're going for. And so I went back to another sim that I'd done, which was the Cornejos and Foxes. And to give you a little backstory on that, uh, this was an idea that I had for an experiment after the Nelly Fox card came out. I think at this point it's over a month ago. It had the highest avoid K in the game at the time at 173. And I think a lot of us know the Nate Cornejo card from Perfect Team because he's an iron 40 pitcher. So he's free for cap tournaments and he has a decent shape. He has pretty good home run suppression and control for a 40. And so for a free pitcher, he has a good shape. The only downside is his stuff is a 10. So he's a pitcher who doesn't strike anyone out, and we have a batter who doesn't strike out. And so I found their seasons based on their cards in the base game. Right. So here's the Nelly Fox. We recently had another card come out that has an even higher avoid K. So I could always run this experiment again. Um, and then here's the Cornejo card, right? The stuff of 10. Hey, Tomato. You know this stuff because you've been in our late night streams, but I'm trying to share with folks what we learned about the totals issue and how to turn it off so that you can have your experiments or your weird sims run the way you expect them to instead of having them get nerfed by the game trying to manage totals. All right, so here's the 10 stuff. It says 2003 cards. So we grabbed the 2003 version of Nate Cornejo and the 1957 version of Nelly Fox. Now, my expectation was, oh, it'll be fun to have a league where no one's striking out. Because we have this pitcher who can't strike anyone out, and every batter is this guy who doesn't strike out. I think he struck out 13 times in 1957, and he typically ranged from like 10 to 20 strikeouts per year with a full season of plate appearances. And so if that guy, if 10 to 20 strikeout Nelly Fox is only hitting against versions of Nate Cornejo or clones of Nate Cornejo who can't strike anyone out, maybe you would get a version of Nelly Fox who strikes out 0 times in a season. Right? But instead, this is what happened. The Nelly Foxes were striking out 60, 70, 80, a few of them 90 sometimes, which makes zero sense. Right? This is the reverse of the Babe Ruth questionnaire. Right? Everyone gets more home runs and more batting average than actually happened. In this case, we got way more strikeouts than I was expecting. I was expecting single digit strikeouts. Instead, this guy who doesn't strike out strikes out 90 times in a full season against a pitcher who can't strike anyone out. And so I went back and looked at, okay, what do those multipliers look like? And the crazy thing is the multiplier for strikeouts is over 400. The game, because Nelly Fox is so good at avoiding strikeouts, and because Nate Cornejo can't throw strikeouts, the game had to multiply the strikeout rate by over 400 to meet its totals quota, right? Because it's looking for 41,000 strikeouts, almost 42,000 strikeouts, and it's not getting them from these two players. So it's saying, okay, whatever the RNG says is going to happen, we need to multiply that by over 400 in terms of strikeouts. And then the other big clues here are, Nelly Fox is not a power hitter. He's a good hitter, but not a power hitter. So the home run multiplier is over two. Um, and so this was kind of the confirmation to say, okay, it's the multipliers.
Why do you
So
keep
then
following me
we went back
around?
in, and this is so much easier than anything I had been thinking of to try to correct for this issue. That you all can do this very easily now without having to jump through any hoops like I thought might be necessary. William Selev, thank you for the follow. Appreciate it. All right, so let's go back into the base game, and I will open up a different sim that we did where we, instead of having a control sub league, we just set the modifiers back to one. And I can't remember in the first game of the oh, actually, we can go back and look. The first game of the season, we did a we hid the scores and watched the highlights, and it was a 17-11 slugfest. I forget how many home runs were hit. Let's see. Uh, 5, 6, 7, 8 given up by that team. 10 given up by that team. So 18 home runs were hit in the first game of this season sim. So it definitely felt like we're on the right track. Right. And so here, I'll show you where we made that adjustment. Game settings, league settings, stats, and AI. We just forced all these modifiers back to one. And then you have to uncheck this box, use AutoCalc of modifiers. If you leave this checked, it will return those modifiers back to the nerfing modifiers as soon as you leave the screen. So that was the two big things are these modifiers are not for eras. These are for correcting for the population of players in your sim. And then the other thing was you have to check this, uncheck this, otherwise the game will revert you right back to where you started. And so with that, we ran the sim and we got what I was expecting would happen when a league full of Babe Ruth faces nothing but a league full of Jose Limas. And so here are the league leading stats. The league leading home run hitter was a Babe Ruth who had 130 home runs. And by the time you get to Babe Ruth 7, you're still over 100. The league leading Babe Ruth batted 397, and the OPS was league leading OPS was 1.653. So this was what I was expecting would happen before I learned about how the base game will manage towards totals, right? And the same thing would happen if you stacked your league in any stat, right? So if you bring in a league full of, I don't know, Reggie Jacksons and Nolan Ryans, all of a sudden your Nolan Ryan's going to be throwing 100 strikeouts a season. and your Reggie Jacksons are going to probably start looking more like Nelly Foxes, just because the league, the game engine does not want to give up that many strikeouts. Instead, it wants to give out 41,800 strikeouts, I think it was. Let's see. Right, yeah, it's trying to manage towards 41,843 strikeouts. Now, the game's smart enough to scale this up or down, right? So we had a league of two teams. So, of course, it wasn't looking for 5,868 home runs. It was looking for that divided by 15, right? We had two teams instead of 30. But the fact remains, like, it's still mandating towards like a total number. And if you have too many players that do that thing, it's going to tamp them down. And so if you want to do a sim like Cornejos and Foxes, where you want to see very few strikeouts, or like Babe Ruth and Jose Limas, who are going to see a ton of home runs, you have to make this adjustment to make it happen. The good thing is this is a super easy adjustment to make, right? Turn all these to ones, uncheck this box, and you're good to go. I think I also ran back the Cornejos and Foxes to see what would happen. Let's load. I have all these crazy names. I just get better at naming these things so I don't lose track of them. I think it's this one. Unnormalizing avoid K. Let's try this one. Oh, the reason I call it normalization, and by the way, this way of thinking about it is not nearly as correct as thinking of it as totals, but it's the way my brain works. The way I think about it is when all you have in your league is Babe Ruth, then Babe Ruth is the average in your league. And therefore, the game is going to want the average player, in other words, Babe Ruth, to hit like an average player. And so that's why you have a bunch of Babe Ruths hitting 250 and only 20 home runs, because that's kind of the average major leaguer if you go by that 5,868 home runs. All right, let's see if I pull the right one here. Oh yeah, this is it. So once I made the correction, you can see the Nelly Foxes, the highest strikeout total is 19. And you have, a bunch of Nelly Foxes with over 500 and 600 plate appearances that are striking out 10 times, 11 times. This one had 631 plate appearances and struck out 9 times. This is more what I was expecting when I ran the experiment, right? Like, so a guy who doesn't strike out somehow managed to strike out even less if the only pitcher he's facing is a low stuff pitcher. Yeah, this is the one without the control league, and just by adjusting this the modifiers. So the other thing I thought might be interesting is let's just do one live. Um, we'll pull the batters, we'll pull the pitchers, we'll create a new save, and we'll do it once without changing the modifiers, and then we'll do it once changing the modifiers, and then we'll rage on over to the Nolan Network podcast. So I thought we would use Barry Bonds as the batter. Right. So let's look at Barry Bonds. One of the reasons I want to use Barry Bonds is I want to show you something interesting that base game does when you try to give him other defensive ratings. Oh, the other thing is this isn't just a base game exercise. If you play Perfect Team, the simulation engines are different, but they're similar. Um, And actually, I didn't know that they were different. So there were at least two simulation engines. There's one for the base game, and there's one for Perfect Team. And my understanding is I don't know if they're two separate Perfect Team engines or they're two different kind of deployments of the Perfect Team engine, but apparently there's one for League and one for tournaments. But that said, the underlying mechanics are not going to be that different. There will be differences, but so that leads me to think that there probably is a totals issue in some of the leagues or tournaments if you start to get too much of one thing, um, whether it's power or strikeouts or stolen bases, whatever it is, um, that might explain some of the weird things people sometimes see in tournament or league play. All right, so let's look up Barry Bonds, and then there was a pitcher in this week's TWIP that had even worse home run um, allowed than 2000 Jose Lima, and I can't remember who it was right now. So if anyone chat happens to remember, please let me know. I think their HRA or their home runs per nine was like 2.7, and Jose Lima's in 2000 was 2.2. So I'd like to get that pitcher into this sim. Oh, here's a really easy tip too. The easiest way to find a player's player ID, which is what you need to import them, is in the URL of their baseball reference profile. Right, so it's right there, Bonds BA01. Now you can usually guess it. It's the first five letters of the last name, first two letters of the first name, and then followed by the number 01. Unless someone has had that letter combination before, then it's 02, 03. And so, you can guess, but it might bite you once in a while. Now, because we have to give these Barry Bonds some fielding attributes, I'm going to do something I don't like to do, which is clone him in the game after I import him. The reason I don't love cloning in the game is because the game sends all your clones into the free agent pool, and sometimes it can be a hassle finding your players and then getting them onto your team. The other thing that I noticed is while you're doing other stuff, other teams will snag some of the players you've cloned or imported. That even happened last night when we were doing the Billy Bean and Glenn Burke tribute. We would create clones of some of the players because we needed a full roster and we only had 13 um, out of the closet, openly gay former professional baseball players. So we had to clone some of them. And while we were working with the clones, one of them would disappear, and like one of them was claimed by the Astros. So I had to go find them in the Astros roster and assign him back to our team. So the easiest way to import players is you can create a text file, which is the player ID, comma, the year you want to import, comma, and then a three-letter designation for the team. You don't need the three letters. If you leave the three letters off, it'll import them into the free agent pool. And since I never know what team we're going to take over, I usually use FTM for franchise time machine. And then whenever we start the sim, I just have to change the three-letter abbreviation of one team instead of changing them all in this roster file. But you can use any program that will produce a TXT text file. So I'm going to create a new one here, and we're going to paste in Barry Bonds player ID, and then we'll go ahead and pick a year. I mean, I think the obvious year to go for is his season high home run season, right? So that's 2001. But he does have other compelling seasons. He has seasons with a slightly higher OPS, or actually significantly higher. If you look at 2004, his OPS is 1422 compared to 1379 for 2001. Um, he also has a lot of these really great skinny Barry Bonds seasons from when he was with Pittsburgh. right? Those are pretty compelling too. But I think since we're going to be looking for home runs, it makes sense to grab this 2001 Barry Bonds. So all we have to do there is type in 2001 here. 2001, and then we're going to send it into the franchise time machine team. And in the absence of information on who that other pitcher was, I guess we'll go back to 2000 Jose Lima. He's proven his worth in the Babe Ruth sim. So, all right. So I'm pulling up Jose Lima in Baseball Reference. Right, and this is his 2000 season, 7-16. ERA is a flawed stat, but 6.65 ERA, 48 home runs allowed, led the league in earned runs allowed, 1.625 WHIP, and 2.2 home runs allowed. The crazy thing is, the year before he went 21-10 with a 125 ERA plus and a 1.218 WHIP, finished fourth in Cy Young voting. So I don't know if he was dealing with an injury or not. In 2001, he still pushed the full season, so it doesn't seem like an injury unless it's one of those nagging injuries that just kind of nerfs your performance, but that lets you stay in the league. But yeah, really bad season. And then maybe he got over it, which is why he bounces back in 2004 with a 1.245 WHIP and a 13-5 record. But anyway, this is a really bad home run season. So we're going to grab this one, unless someone else can remember that player I'm thinking of from Twipt. All right, so here's the player ID. And we're just going to paste that into here. And we want the 2000 version. And with Jose Lima, we actually don't have to do um, any edits. So for him, I think we'll just copy and paste him. We'll do him 11 times, so we'll have a total of 12. And we're going to import this list twice, once for each team. 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. So if you want multiple versions of player, that's all you have to do is copy and paste it. Now, a lot of times, like when I did the Kitty Bransfields and Dave Steves, who are two of Laptop Hound's favorite players, I used a different season for each one. So this would have been like 2000, 2001, 2002. But that's another quick way you can bring in an entire career of a person by just, going down this list and changing those years. All right, so we're going to save this as Bonds versus Lima. All right, let's save that. So now we can find it when we're in the game. All right, so anytime you want to do an import, you just go to let's start a new game, first of all. Let me go back to the base game. Okay, we cannot do challenge mode because we need to be in commissioner mode. And we'll just do it in 2023. I mean, you could pick any season. I tend to do these things in 2023 because that's the most recent complete season. For these sims, especially when it's one team versus other, we don't need the complete history, so I'm going to uncheck that. And I have development off, and I have recalc off. So what recalc is at the end of each season, it gives players new ratings based on their stats for that next year. Well, we don't want that to change, even though this is a one season sim. So I just put on career mode. But we're going to turn off everything. We're going to turn off player development. We're going to turn off aging. We're going to turn off coaching. And so the idea is just to make it like these cards facing each other or these players facing each other in their imported state. Okay, we're not going to bother the minor leagues. We'll turn injuries off so no one needs to bring up anyone from the minors or anything. And won't do expansion, even though it's a one season sim. Okay. So we show you a bunch of stuff in the behind the scenes of the base game. If you haven't done it before, it might seem intimidating, but it is pretty simple. And then you can always watch a VOD of this. You can message me with questions. I'm happy to answer them. So we'll call this Bonds versus Lima. We'll call it V1. And we need to be in commissioner mode because we can do a bunch of funky stuff in the base game. Maybe I should have rolled some ads while I was thinking. This part usually doesn't take too long though. And then one thing we're going to do is we're going to take advantage of the quick starts feature. And once we get all the Barry Bonds is set up so they can play infield and stuff, because we want to take fielding out of the equation, we'll save it as a quick save. So then we can run it once with the modifiers the way OOTP wants them, and then we'll run it again with the modifier set to 1, and you can see the difference. Okay, we're going to manage the Mets. That's usually who I manage when I play base game. You can pick any team. In fact, when we do roster takeovers, we've been taking over the Oakland Athletics lately because they're leaving anyway. Oh, and Azran anyway. Hey, Dolan, are you still shooting for 5:30 to start your stream today? All right, we're back from ads. So first, let's just get down to the two teams we're going to use. That's one of the easiest things. So under game settings, league settings. Um, this is a little weird. Under league settings, there's a bunch of menus of things you can pick here, but then there's also a bunch of additional menus on this gray bar. So under functions, there's a lot of stuff you can do, but then you can't overlook these because there's a lot of important things in here too. Um, so the easiest thing to do is reduce the number of teams. So we go to edit league structure. Now we learned the hard way that that you can't have one team per sub league and do a sim. Because if you just have one AL team and one NL team, I think what the game engine is thinking is I don't need to do a season. I already know who's going to win the pennant because there's only one team in the NL and one team in the AL. So it went right to the playoffs, which is really weird. Um, and then it was really hard to undo it. It turns out you have to delete the entire sub league. You can't just delete the divisions in it. You have to delete the entire sub league. But anyway, to avoid that, we're going to just start right away. We're going to delete the entire AL. I'm sure AL, some NL fans have been wanting to do this for a long time, but we can just wipe out the entire AL. That just leaves the NL. Now we're going to also wipe out the Central and the West. And you can go in and adjust the playoff structure, but since all we care about are what the regular season stats look like, I'm not going to bother with that. We're just going to delete a few more teams. So we'll remove Miami, Philadelphia, and the Nationals. Okay. Now, to do the import, we're going to take turns letting each team be the franchise time machine abbreviation so that they can get the players that we're going to import. So first we'll start with Atlanta, alphabetically they're first. So we'll change them to FTM temporarily. And all the importing happens. Oh, yeah, before we do that, let's go look at the multipliers. We'll screenshot it before and after, and you'll see how they change. Okay, so use autocalc modifiers is still on, right? And right now the modifiers are 1 because we haven't changed the structure of the league yet. Technically we have. We deleted a bunch of teams. So I would have thought actually some of these modifiers might have changed already because the Mets and the Braves, there's nothing that says like those two teams represent the average for the rest of the major league. So I actually thought by deleting the other teams, it would have changed these modifiers. Actually, let's force an autocalc and see if it does. Oh yeah, see, it did. So by virtue of deleting a bunch of teams, you now have two teams that no longer represent the original average of the major leagues. And so it had to make some changes because of the two teams we have left. I guess they threw too many hit by pitches. Oh, and I think that's because last in 2023, the Mets got hit by pitches a ton of times early in the year. And so the game's saying, okay, there's too many hit by pitches, so we need to nerf that. But we also need to boost these other things. All right, so it is already making adjustments. So let's screenshot this. Function F12 gets you screenshots in OOTP. Okay, so now, well, first let's go ahead and delete Atlanta's roster because we're going to make room for our Babe Ruths and Jose Limas. Okay. Oh, you know what? It may not let me do this yet because it thinks I'm only in charge of the Mets right now. Let's see if it lets me do it. Oh, it did. Okay, because I'm in commissioner mode. Sometimes though, if like you're not the owner of the team, it won't let you do certain things. But that time it let me do that. Okay, so let's go to the free agent screen. Okay, we're gonna delete all these free agents just to make it easier to find our players. Oh, and this has to be all players. Otherwise, you'll forget to delete a bunch of players. All right. Okay. Now let's import our historical players from the historical database. And up top here is where you can enter in player IDs one at a time if you want to just import individual players. But that takes time and it doesn't let you specify where they're going to go. So by clicking this file, when we called it Bonds versus Lima, right, it's going to bring in 13 players at once. A Barry Bonds, who we're going to need to clone and edit, and the Jose Limas that we don't have to do anything with at all. Now, if you are going to bring in players and some of them have small sample sizes, you're going to want to adjust these cutoffs. Players below these cutoffs or at bats and innings will get nerfed. And so if you want to avoid that, go ahead and change those. The other thing that's helpful is uh, basing the fielding rates on an entire career. So Jackie Robinson is a good example of that. He only played first base his rookie year with the Dodgers. If you import that season and don't do entire career, he won't be able to play second base or shortstop like he does in other seasons. Um, same goes for other players who play multiple positions. Now, if you don't want those positions, it's always easier to use editor and delete out those fielding capabilities than it is to figure out like how to add them. Because otherwise you're just guessing on their ratings. At least this way it brings in the ratings and you can choose to keep them or not. We have no small sample size issues, so we can leave those the same. And we're going to bring in pitcher stamina for the imported season. Okay, now our first test is we should get 13 players imported, and we'll get a pop-up box that tells us how many were imported. Well, 15 players are imported. Did I count wrong on my? Let me go back to the notepad here. Let's see if I counted wrong. I might have been thinking of batters and made 14 copies by mistake. Let's see. Uh, I did. I made 14 versions. Okay, so I'm going to delete 2 of them because we're going to use this list one more time to import into the other team. But that's fine. It's a lot easier to delete players than import them. So we're in the free agent pool. We're going to need to come here for our clones, but because we changed Atlanta's designation to ATM, our imports are already in their roster. So there's all the Jose Limas, and there's our one Barry Bonds. Now, normally when I do this sim, I would number each Jose Lima and each Barry Bonds so I can keep track of like which one's doing what. But this is just for demonstration, and we're really only concerned about the league totals and the league leaders, so I'm not going to bother with that. Now, the one thing we are going to do though is now, if you haven't gone to editor, this is pretty cool. You just click this, and you get to see all the stuff that makes up Barry Bonds. Right, so league average power is 399 on a scale of 1 to 550. His power is 529. Now, if you look at down here, expected current MLB, it's expecting, based on these ratings, a 320 average, 481 on base percentage, 807 slugging, and 76 home runs. Right, he actually hit 73. His eye should be 800, says Tom Tomato. His actual eye is 531. So the part of that, though, I'm glad you brought that up, though, because that illustrates the power of the 550. 550 is like beyond, it's just beyond Bonds, right? 550 is beyond Bonds' power. 550 is beyond Bonds' eye, which gives you a sense of like how high 550 is. Okay, so here's the problem we're going to run into. Barry Bonds is only rated for outfield, and so he can't play catcher or infield the way he is right now. And normally, I would make 2 versions who play catcher. Um, oh, what is this? Oh, Laptop Hound with a Prime subscription. Thank you very much, Laptop Hound. Oh, it happens so infrequently, I didn't even notice the alert. I didn't know what the alert was. Thank you, Laptop Hound. That is especially meaningful because he is one of the first streamers I followed and one of the reasons I'm streaming today. So thank you very much for the subscription. Um, yeah, so 550 is super high. It's even higher than Barry Bonds' eye or power. So it gives you a sense of what that is. Oh yeah, so I was saying normally I would make 2 clones of Barry Bonds and give them catcher attributes. I would do 6 or 7 and give them infielder attributes, and then have the rest be outfielder. But for the sake of time, we're just going to give every Barry Bonds the ability to play every position. Now, if you look over here, watch the fielding ratings, right? They're 0 because he has no experience, but the right-hand side of the slash gives you the highest potential fielding ability. Tom Mato says in one of his projects, so Tom Mato's been doing some experiments too. He had a 1911 Ty Cobb with an 89 game hitting streak, which is amazing. But watch these change as I give him infield ratings and catcher ratings, right? We'll give him 125 range, infield range, 125 infield error, right? You see the potential first base rating go up to 154 now. 125 infield arm goes up even more. Turn double play is 125. Now watch the catcher potential rating. Catcher blocking 125. Catcher framing 125. And catcher arm 125. Right? He's a potential 118 catcher. Now, you might notice, even though he has these ratings, so OOTP bases fielding ability on two things: your ratings in that position and also your experience. So we're going to make all these 200, which is maximum experience, because I don't want to have to deal with um, fielding being an issue. Okay. You notice these are dashes. It's not giving us a rating for second base, third base, or shortstop. The first time we did this in stream, I was like, I don't know what's happening. And we're kind of looking around. And then we realized he throws left handed. And so OOTP will not give you a rating for second base, third base, or shortstop if you throw left handed. So we have to go over to the bio section here. And it's not going to change his batting. He's still going to bat left handed, but he's going to throw right handed. Now, when I do this kind of more thoroughly, I would only turn the infielder Barry Bonds' to throw right-handed. The others would still throw left-handed, just because I want to minimize. Um, Mattingly would not comply, but for the sake of this, I don't have to deal with multiple versions of Barry Bonds, so we can get through this a little faster. So I'm going to turn all the Barry Bonds to throw right-handed. These are the kinds of things you have to get comfortable with if you want to do these weird experiments in the base game. All right, so now that we have this Barry Bonds done, I think everything else we're going to leave the same. Stealing ability, secondary stats, everything else is going to be the same. Now we're just going to clone this player a bunch of times. All right, so if you right click, you can clone player. Okay, so now there should be one clone in the free agent pool. So here's what we're going to do though. We need we need 28 total. We have one here. We need 27 more. So now we're going to go into the free agent pool. This is fun. Okay, there are 3 Barry Bonds clones. Now we can do 3 at a time here. Now we have 6. Now we have 12. Now we have 24. And we just need 3 more. All right, now we have all the Barry Bonds we need. They play all the positions, so we're good to go. Now we have to assign them to teams. Oh, wait, before we do that, let's go ahead and import into the Mets. So let's clear out the Mets roster first. All right, we're going to delete all their players. I've wanted to do this sometimes, as much as I like the Mets. I've been tempted to just delete them all. Okay, they're all gone. Now let's import the Jose Limas. It will import an extraneous Barry Bonds. We'll just have to remember to delete him, because that Barry Bonds will not have the fielding attributes that we need. Okay, we're going to use the list again, so we don't have to worry about them getting mixed up with the Barry Bonds we want to keep. All right, Bonds and Lima. Oh, wait. I almost messed up. We have to go back and we have to change the team that has FTM as their 3-letter designation, right? We don't want to put them into Atlanta again. So Atlanta goes back to being ATL. The Mets go back to being now our FTM, just for the purpose of the import. Okay, so we're back in the free agent screen, import historical players. We're going to use that file, Bonds versus Lima, and we're going to import. And this time, I hope I hit save after I corrected the number of Limas. I think I did. If it says 15, we know why, but it should say 13. I didn't hit save. Okay, we'll just go back into the and we'll just delete a couple of Jose Limas. All right, we'll just delete two of them. It could be any two. Oh, there's a weird quirk though. You see how not all these Jose Limas have the same potential, even though they should be the same player because it's the same player ID in the same year. OOTP does this weird thing where when you import clones of a player, let's go in editor into pitching ratings. A lot of these extraneous things that seem extraneous, like hit batsman, box, ground out percentage, are kind of randomized. And also look at the the pitches. Right, fastball, slider, curveball, changeup, sinker, circle change. I'm going to arrow up and down through these Jose Limas, and the pitch selection is probably going to change. You see, the ratings are changing. You see the ratings change as I go down through the roster. Now, for some players I imported, I noticed even like their pitch selection changed. But you see these changes, the ratings change a little bit. Now, I understand if the game is doing that because it wants to add a little bit of variety, but I think you should give us the option to opt out of that. Like in an experiment like this, I want all these players to be identical. Um, and in an identical league that I created to kind of be like the white lab rat of leagues, I went in and I standardized everything I could think of. Nolan says that the OOTP recalc engine might play a role in this. Oh, that's probably right, Nolan. That probably is what's happening. Um, oh, so maybe if I turn recalc off before I do the imports, maybe it won't do that. That's something to test out the next time we stream. Um, thanks, Nolan. That's yeah. That leads me to another interesting experiment idea. Turn recalc off first, and maybe we don't get that randomization. All right, so okay, now we're going to delete this bonds because this one, and let me make sure it does not have all the positions. Yeah, this one is going to get deleted. Now, a good quality of life thing for a future OTP version might be that when you clone players, give us the option of setting a destination for them, kind of like we do when we import. But there's an easy way to assign these players without having to sign them and wait for them to sign, which is super annoying when you're trying to do a sim. In an editor, in the bio section, if you scroll down, just set their league to Major League Baseball, and then the team to the destination you want to send them to. In this case, the Mets. Right? See, it's already a Met. And then you arrow down to the next one, and then you can just pick Mets again. That's 2 to the Mets, arrow down, 3 to the Mets, arrow down, 4 to the Mets, arrow down, 5 to the Mets, arrow down, 6 to the Mets, arrow down, 7 to the Mets, arrow down, 8 to the Mets, arrow down, 9 to the Mets, arrow down, 10 to the Mets, arrow down, 11 to the Mets, 12 to the Mets, 13 to the Mets, and 14 to the Mets. All right, now let's just go check on the Mets to make sure we got that right. Yeah, 26-man roster. All Barry Bonds and Jose Limas. Now let's go to the Braves. All right, there's already one here, so we only need to do 13 of those. Let's go back to the free agent pool. Now, when the free agents pool is clear and all you have are your clones, it's not that bad. The time when it's a hassle, if you're doing a sim and you want to keep the free agent pool, you have to then go hunt for your players, which is annoying. Okay, so now we're going to the Braves. That's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, and then that should be it. Yep, that's it. Great. Let's go check on the Braves real quick. Yep, they have 26 players. Awesome. Now, if you're just importing a roster of 26 players who are ready to go, we'd already be simming. The only reason we have to do this is because when you clone one player over and over, unless it's like Jose Okendo or some utility player, you're going to run into problems with fielding. And so we want to, this little bit of work, I think, is worth it to, we have too many Barry Bonds and Jose Limas. Why do we have extras on the Braves? Pitching staff. Oh, I forgot to delete the extra Limas, I guess. Okay, so there's 12 Limas and 13 Bonzes. Okay, so yeah, that was the one where I imported 15 by mistake. So Bonds can come back. This Lima gets deleted. Okay, now let's do all the other things we want to do to set up the sim properly. Game settings. Okay, we're going to turn off scouting. To me, this was counterintuitive when I first started playing the game. Turning off scouting means your scouting becomes 100% accurate because basically you're getting rid of this concept of scouts who might be, not 100% accurate. Instead, you just get the actual ratings. We're going to turn injuries off. Oh, sorry. Let me go back to global sync. Make sure I'm not forgetting something else. Oh, coaching. We're going to turn coaching off. We don't want to have anything that's going to potentially make one team better or worse than the other during the sim. Okay, we're turning injuries off. We're turning suspensions off. We're going to turn personality ratings off and morale off, chemistry off. All these things can cause players to perform better or worse. We're going to disable player development. Right? We just want our players to play as they were brought in. Another cool quality of life thing would be just a check mark to say this is an experiment, and so you turn all these things off. That would be cool. But I don't know how many people actually play the game like I do, so that might be a request from one person. Another thing to help is you, one problem you might have is the AI does stuff you don't want it to do. Um, if you set all teams controlled by you, Mochi Mitsushi is the name I use to sim under, is my GM or manager name. Now all the teams are controlled by me. It's only two, but that also helps prevent the AI from doing stuff I don't want it to do. Okay, we're going to disable trading, right? I don't want, again, it shouldn't trade because I'm controlling the teams and I'm going to be making any trades, but these are just kind of fail safes. We're not going to do a draft in case it interrupts the season. This is just a thing I do out of habit. It shouldn't matter in this one, but when I replace a team in the major leagues, for example, I turn the importance of popularity and all-star voting to none because I want it to be based on performance, not on popularity. So it gives you like a mid-season gauge of how well players on your team are doing without because believe it or not, if you import Babe Ruth, his popularity is zero. No one knows who he is when you import him. The same will go for Barry Bonds. Oh, sorry. Let me make sure there's nothing else here. I don't think there is. Okay, players, historical. Oh, if you're going to do more than one season, you want to turn off these. Or where is it? Oh, sorry. It's not on this page, I guess. Oh, yeah, they're already unchecked. Retire players according to history. Your players will disappear the year they retired in real life unless you uncheck this. And then players miss seasons according to history. If someone was out for military service or injury, they'll be gone unless you uncheck this. Honorary report historical rookies. We don't need that. Okay. Now stats and AI. We're going to run this without making the adjustments, but we're going to force the auto count. So this is what it was after we had just the Braves and Mets in the league. Now it's just Barry Bonds and um, Jose Limas. Now we're going to let it run the way it wants to first. Actually, let me save it as a. I think we've done all the other. Oh, one more thing is to avoid being interrupted in our sims, which I do a month at a time. We have to uncheck these exit autoplay options. We don't want it to exit autoplay at all. And then in the mailbox, I want to hear about the All-Star and the All-Star game and the major awards. So I want to make sure those are turned on. Okay. Now, if we go back to here, let's save our game. And now we're going to save this as a quick start. It's a little bit better than a backup because it's super easy to restore. So save current game as quick start. And we're going to call it Ruth versus Lima. And this is going to be no changes to modifiers. Everything else is ready to go. Okay. Now, when I hit auto calc modifiers, you should see some big changes. Home runs, the home run modifier should go way down. The walks modifier will probably also go way down. Basically, anything that Barry Bonds does well should be nerfed. Okay, auto calc modifiers. It's thinking. Oh, our rosters aren't set. We need to have, okay, the pitchers are assigned. Oh, the lineups are assigned. Maybe they're not for the Mets. Oh yeah, they're not assigned for the Mets. This is, I think, it needs to know who's starting and who's on the bench, so it can weight the plate appearances expected from each player. That's what I'm assuming. Right? It doesn't know who's pitching, so it can't. Now it doesn't know that they're all clones, but I think that's what it's looking for. Now, unfortunately, I saved the quick start before I did that, so maybe we'll save it again. Let's see if it'll let me save over the same name. Nope, it already exists. V2 rosters built. Okay. All right. Now, if we go back to the modifiers. Okay, we're going to auto calc them. There's an error. What? What is it looking for? Okay, every time I do this, I learn something new. So it looks like we're about to learn something new. What does it not like about these rosters? All the positions are filled. All the back. Yeah, all the staffs are set. Well, that's for the Mets. Let's try the Braves again. Oh, okay. Maybe I needed to force it to set the. That's the only thing I can think of. So let's go back and it should work now. What? Hmm. I did both teams. I did the rotations and the. I don't see what else I can have it do. Hmm. Please verify all team rosters are set correctly. I don't know what it's looking for here. This wasn't a problem when we did the Ruths and Limas. Hmm. Oh, part of it might be we have to set a schedule. That might be part of it. I know not having a schedule will mess some things up. So we just hit generate schedule here. Okay, schedule generated. Let's see if that helps. Ah, see, that error message is misleading because it says make sure your rosters are set, but really it needed a schedule. Okay, check out the home run modifier. It just dropped to 0.257. Walks dropped to 0.623. And I guess Barry Bonds didn't get hit by enough pitches, or Lima didn't throw enough because the hit by pitch modifier and the strikeout modifiers are up. Um, yeah, so let me screenshot this. This is what it looks like if we don't adjust the modifier. So you can see how this is going to mess up your stats, especially compared to like what you're expecting when you have all-time season Barry Bonds facing Gopher Ball 2000 Jose Lima, right? Like this would really throw off the results. So what we're going to do is leave it like this. We have to remember to set the schedule when we do the quick start again. But we're ready to go. So we'll go to standings. Let's just do the whole season. Or actually, I'll show you how to do month by month, and then after a couple months, we'll just do the whole season. So this will send the next month. 2023 starts in March, so we'll just run one or two games. All right, so we're one and both teams are 1-1. Let's see. Let's check out the scores. Okay, 1-5 and 5-4. Those are not scores I think you would expect if you had a whole lineup of Barry Bondses facing a pitching staff of only 2,000 Jose Limas. All right, so we're already, even if we hadn't seen the modifiers, I think we'd be suspicious that something's going on here. All right, look at these earned run averages. There's no way Jose Limas should be having sub 3 ERAs facing nothing but Barry Bonds. Oh, Spore, thank you for the raid. Yeah, day stream GT Sundown, a day stream from Franchise Time Machine. That's right. I found a spot in the affiliate schedule. I think it was actually Nolan and Dr. Dynastic who suggested it. There's a little opening here between 3:30 and 5:30, and I wanted to share with everybody what we've learned about the totals issue in the base game and how you can turn it off essentially. Um, here at the we're in the middle on Jose Lima, the 2000. And this is the year Barry Bonds hit 73 home runs. Okay, let's look at these game scores for April. Okay, there's no way you should have a 3-2 game when you have two rosters full of Barry Bondses hitting off of Gopher Ball Jose Lima. There's no way that should happen. All right, so let's go to the end of the season and we'll check out the season stats and we'll see how many home runs did the league leading Barry Bonds hit. And while that sims, because the records should not be that important, uh, for the folks who just rated in, this is something I learned last night in a sim I did celebrating um, Billy Bean and Glenn Burke, the only two openly gay former Major League Baseball players. Did you know? Let me share this. Did you know there is a woman, at least one, in the OOTP historical database? That means if you go into OOTP right now and import this player, you can find her and put her on one of your sims. Left-handed pitcher Isla Borders, who in the 90s and 2000s pitched independent ball and also got a scholarship to play college baseball. I did not know that existed, and I'm super excited to find that out. So one of my missions now is to try to find other women in the game and see if we can do like a sim with them or something. Okay, so we're at the last game of the season, right? We should be at 161 games. We have to sim the. Oh, what happened here? Wait, why did it stop at? Why did it only give us 56 games? All right. Well, it's a good thing we did a quick start. Let's just start a new quick start game and figure out what happened. It's not Ruth versus Lima. It's Bonds versus. Did I call it Ruth versus Lima when it's actually Bonds versus Lima? I think I did. It's actually Bonds versus Lima. We'll call it full schedule. I don't know what happened there. Okay, we know there's three things we need to do before and I'll save it as a new quick start. We're gonna run this back one time. Yeah, I think we can still fit it in and still raid over to Nolan in time. We're gonna do it one time without the modifiers being corrected, so we'll still have the totals issue, and then we'll do it one time with it corrected. Spore, thank you for the raid. I think you were doing a PTCS roster build, so hope that went well. I don't know how many rosters are you building? We're gonna pick the Mets. Okay, so we know we have to. All right, we know we have to assign lineups. It didn't like that they weren't assigned, and we know we have to assign a pitching rotation. Didn't like that, and we'll do the same for the Braves. Okay, these are all things we kind of forgot to do last time. And we need to generate a schedule. Now, generating the schedule is, I think, where we messed up last time. There might be a setting for the total number of teams. Brent says he would love it if he would do all his streams in the day so he wouldn't have to stay up late. All my streams in the day. Well, my streams are my dreams. I dream up these crazy scenarios and then I wonder if the total number of games got changed somehow. Yeah, no, it's 162 regular season games. All right, let's go back. Let's generate the schedule, and then let's make sure there are enough games before. Okay, schedule generated. All right, March is a short month. That's about 30, a little less. Yeah, no, we have a
Why do
full
you keep
schedule. I don't know
following me
what happened in
around?
that last sim. That's weird. Okay, as long as we did all the work, let's go ahead and save this as a quick start, and let's name it the right thing. All right, it's Bonds versus Lima, and we'll still call it V3 just so we don't get mixed up. Canary 85, thank you for the follow. Appreciate it. I said 152 and it's 162. Okay, yeah, sorry if I misspoke. Yeah, we do want 162 games, but the last, when we just simmed it, it gave us like 50 some games for some reason. So I don't know what happened. I've never seen that before. All right, let's try this out again. Let's go to May. Oh, wait, it didn't start, but it's a good thing it didn't start because I forgot to check the modifiers. Okay, yeah, it did the modifiers. Strangely, the home run modifier is slightly different, I think, than last time. Let's screenshot this again. We can compare. Okay, so now why did it not start? I guess it just didn't like that I said All-Star break for some reason. Again, there's no way there should be Jose Limas with ERAs below 2, which we have. The league leading Barry Bonds right now has 7 home runs after a month. All right, maybe it doesn't like that I tried to do a big chunk, so we'll just go a month at a time. We'll just quick sim it though. Sure. Leading Barry Bonds are June 1st. Oh, that's weird. Okay. Maybe we just need to keep simming last time. I should not be getting personal messages.
Why do you
Oh,
keep
I forgot
following
to
me
do
around?
this. Did I also forget to save this as the part of the... Oh, man. What else did I forget to save? Porthos 2610, thank you for the follow. Um, are injuries still on and stuff like that? No, okay, everything else stuck. So, yeah, okay. Sean, thank you. And welcome to the chat. Thank you. I just didn't do the do not disturb. Okay, appreciate it. Yeah, it looks like that's all it was. Okay. All right, we're good. Nothing that would change the statistics or anything. We're over halfway through the season now because we're at 86 games, and the leading home run hitter Barry Bonds has 16 home runs. So on a pace for about 30. Right. This Barry Bonds against this Jose Lima should be hitting over 100, I think. Okay, we're doing August now. The Bonds has just got to 20 home runs in August. There is a Bonds hitting almost 320 though. And there is a Bonds who had a 36 game hitting streak. Now, this is why I usually number the Bondses and the Limas, because so you can see like which one is doing what. But in the interest of time, mostly I just wanted to show you what happens to the totals. But when I do this for real, I do number the Bondses. I do make 2 catcher Bondses and 7 infielder Bondses. But just for simplicity today, I kind of cut a few corners here. Okay, and so we don't need to finish the postseason, but let's look at the stats. Okay, our league leading Barry Bonds hit 30 home runs. This is a guy who hit 73 home runs against a pitcher who gave up 48 home runs or 2.2 home runs per 9 innings. Right? So this is weird, right? This shouldn't be. But we know why, right? We looked at the modifiers before we started, right? We know the issue. Okay, so let's save this and now we'll run it back. Maybe in the game it needs to be good pitchers and average players. Yeah. So Brent, it's exactly yeah, it's a lot like that. It's trying to manage the total numbers of things like hits and home runs and strikeouts, and so it's using modifiers to do that, and it's tamping down Barry Bonds' home runs because there's too many Barry Bondses. There's too many potential home runs in this league unless the game engine does that. But now we're going to show you how to do it so you get the stats you would expect. I'm going to start a new quick start game. We're going to use Bonds versus Lima 3. And we're going to call this Bonds versus Lima no mod. Right? We're going to have no modifiers. Yeah, exactly. Exactly, Brent. A poor pitcher becomes a better pitcher, and a good pitcher probably becomes a worse pitcher. Because it's trying to manage everything towards the totals that actually happened in 2023. But this is going to be fun. Now check out what happens when we basically take the governor off the engine. Right? We're going to let Bonds be Bonds, and for better or for worse, we're going to let Jose Lima 2000 be Jose Lima 2000. And let's see what happens. I think we might hit 150 home runs at this point. So for those of you who did the survey prior to today's stream, I appreciate it. If you want to throw some guesses into the chat now that you know what's going on, feel free. Ship it one of these in course. My OOTP has a think hard. My audio sometimes cuts out. Sorry about that. 100 from Brent. I'm putting out the 150 out there. Course is a great idea, though. Next time we do one of these, we should definitely put it in course. That's a great suggestion. It was, oh, that was GT Sundown with the core suggestion. Like it. I like it, like it. Okay, so we need to go fix those modifiers. All right. We're going to make it auto calc. All right, now we're going to change all these to 1. Now look, I'm going to change these to 1. Oops, 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 oops. Uh-oh. Control Z. Okay, good. Control Z worked. Thank goodness. OTP needs an undo button. Okay, so I changed them all to 1, right? Now look, if I navigate away from this window and I come back to it. Oh wait, no, it didn't do it. Oh, that's fine. Okay. Usually I have to uncheck this box to make sure. A lot of times, like when I wander away and come back, it'll have returned it to 1. So we're going to take off auto calculate modifier so it won't do that anymore. All right, I think we're ready to go. All right, let's see what happens. I think we know what's going to happen, but let's see what happens. Right, two games, two games. Right, you saw in the last sim there were like some 3-2 games, a 7-5 game, 16-17, and 11-6. Now we're talking. Even 11-6 sounds a little low to me, but now we're talking. Now Bonds is being Bonds and Lima's being Lima. Let's do another month. We'll take a quick peek at the calendar and then we'll do the rest of the year and then we'll look at the stats and then we'll head on over to Nolan Network Podcast. All right. Oh, a 7-game home run streak. All right, let's take a quick look at the calendar and see what the scores look like. 29-7, 27-21, 16-27, 20-19, 12-14 in extras. You know what? I stand corrected though. Even with the modifiers set to 1, there was a 5-7 game. I'm a little surprised. Bonds had 25 home runs in the first month. Should we okay, we're I feel like since Nolan's bringing it up, we have his permission to maybe be a little late into his rave. So we're 30 games in, right? So a little less than a fifth of the way through the season. And a fifth of the way through the season. And the leading Bonds has 22 home runs. Okay, Nolan, thank you. Yeah. I shouldn't be much longer than 5:30 anyway, but I appreciate it. 22 home runs, a little less than a fifth of the way through the season. So you can see where this is headed. So I think what Nolan's looking at is on the sides, it'll have the league leaders as the sim goes. So we'll do another month. Yeah, the leading Bonds is hitting 422, 30 bombs already. I'll be curious to see if any of the Bonds can hang on and hit 400. All right. We're at the end of May. Let's do June. Uh, oh, for some reason it stopped in late May. That's weird. Okay, now we're going again. 50 home runs. We've crossed 50, and we're only 70 games in the season. 118 RBIs already. We've got several OPSs above 1.5. All right, 86 games in, so a little over halfway through. Halfway through, and we're at 64 home runs. The starting pitchers cannot call for the ERA now. Yeah, GT saw that. That happened with the Limas and Ruths too. There was no ERA title because no one could last long enough. I think it's worth looking at some scores too. Let's see some scores. I appreciate Nolan being flexible on start time so we can do some of these things. Like look at this 24-25 score, 12-38, 35-9. Amazing. Yet here we have a shutout. A shutout. A shutout. How did that happen? How did a 3-hit shutout? The Limas combined for a 3-hit shutout? Look at this. A quality start, 7 innings, no earned runs. Unbelievable. Okay, every time we do this, something amazing happens. Hey, Brown Bag Mulligan, welcome to the stream. Welcome to the chat. How is that possible? Man, it's like in Jurassic Park, nature finds a way. 10 strikeouts from Bonds is in game one. Yeah, 10 strikeouts. No earned runs and 3 hits. Wow. Crazy. Yeah, I'm glad we checked the calendar. That score really stood out. Oh, 0-6. And then the same month we have a 25-23 score. All right. Now let's do another month. A three hitter in this environment is insane. No one says, I do love reading double play. Bonds, bonds, bonds. All right, let's do another month. Man, a three-hit shutout. Oh, 2000 vintage Jose Limas combined to throw a three-hit shutout against the 73 home run Barry Bonds. That's crazy. All right, we're at 77 home runs. I feel like the home runs have started slowing down, though. We're kind of stuck at 77 here. Or maybe my computer's frozen. They turned back the clock for one night. All right, we got to look at the schedule again and see if anything crazy happened. 32 game hit streak. It's interesting. They leave room for a All Star break, even though we don't have an All Star game. Yeah, look at this 7-6 jam, 4-8. Yet there's a 25-4 in case you thought the pitching was starting to catch up. 42-24, 6 touchdowns versus 3 touchdowns and a field goal. Yeah, 42-24. That's definitely a football score. I mean, what's your guys' take? If they're using the modifiers to prevent, like, I keep hearing they don't want football scores. But I mean, if we're bringing some of the best players together, if the best pitchers can't keep up, I mean, I'm okay with football scores. And Nolan says the football games are here. Yeah, Nolan's running a 1900 sim, dead ball era, so you're not going to see this for sure. At 161, finish our last game. Now, here's some RNG for you, right? These teams are identical, but because of RNG and just natural variance, right? They're not going to be 500. You have a little bit of a little bit of range in the outcomes, right? The RNG does RNG. All right, so let's look at some stats, shall we? I want to say the home runs got a little muted towards the end there. Yeah, 95. We were not on pace for 95. The Babe Ruth hit way more than that. So this is something interesting after the fact. I'm going to do a little post mortem off stream and try to figure out what happened there because we took a 0.248 modifier to made it one, so they should have been at least 4x. In the last sim, the leading bonds hit 30, so you would expect it to hit 120. So I wonder if something happened, like I left coaching or development on or something like that. There must be some kind of artifact, or it's just I would believe it was RNG if just one were tamped down, but they're all stuck at 90s and 80s. So I think there's something up. But hopefully you guys, you all in the stream, see kind of the influence. Max LP says 95 home runs, rookie numbers. Um, but hopefully you can see, right, how those multipliers, the modifiers, um, in the forums, in Discord, I think people tend to call it the totals issue. I've been calling it normalization, but the more I learn about it, I think totals is a more accurate label. Um, but you can see how it impacts your your sims. Now, if all you're doing is taking over one team and replacing that roster with like an all-time roster, you'll get nerfed a little, but not as much. And the reason is because you have an entire league kind of buffering you from the totals issue. It's when you have head to head like this, you only have two teams, the totals will crush your sim because there's no one else kind of basically providing like the bottom end or an offset to your high performing experimental teams. In Togmano's project, the highest is 84 home runs by 1994 Bagwell during the 2019 season. And he only hit 50 in 1987. No, that's interesting. I don't think of 87 as being a particularly like low home run era. So that's interesting. It was a 86 and 87 were pretty pitcher heavy seasons though. Like Mike Scott had his huge year. There were lots of pitchers I think working on the split finger that year. It was really bringing up strikeouts. But yeah, that's interesting. The 87 was so low and 94 was so high. Yeah, Tonk Vato's been doing some interesting sims. He's been generous enough to share his screenshots in our Discord. So let me share that Discord link if anyone wants to jump in and have fun with us doing weird sims. I'm actually glad that Mike Scott card came out because that 86 Mike Scott season was like burned into my memory, especially like as a Mets fan. The Mets played Houston in the NLCS, and Mike Scott was just, I mean, he killed everybody, but he was definitely a Mets killer that year. And so it's cool having that card in the game because I remember vividly how his splitter just like shut people down, shut entire teams down. It was crazy. Here's a link to the Discord if anyone wants to join. Um, I often share kind of some of the outputs from the Sims. Other people are sharing interesting experiments they're doing, which I really appreciate. Yeah, the home run leaders in the 80s were 30 to 45 runs. Oh, that's right. Yeah. There's that one weird year, though. I think it might have been 87, where a bunch of players, including I remember Andre Dawson, maybe hit like 49 or something. But other than that, yeah, like 80s were pretty dead for home run production. 86 Mike Side is 15-8 in two seasons. Amazing. Um, all right, yeah. So that's it from my end. Hope you all enjoyed the stream. Hope you all learned something about the base game. If I piqued your interest about doing experiments in Sims, please let me know what you're working on. I'm always curious to hear what other people decide to do, and let me know if you turn modifiers on or off. All right. With that, I think we're gonna get ready to raid into Nolan. See if he's up yet. Y'all have a good time with Nolan. He's doing two saves. I think he alternates between them. One is a 1979 Mariners save, and the other is a 1900. I want to say Pirates save, but that might not be right. I don't think I need to do a shout out because we're going to rate it. So if you're not already, please follow the Nolan Network podcast, even though it's a bit of a handful to type or a mouthful to say. Let me see if he's on yet. Okay, we'll give him a minute. Let me see if he sent me a message. All right, Nolan, we're ready to go to you whenever you are. Max Stephen, yeah. That reminds me, I am planning to be on tonight at my normal time, which is 10 p.m. Pacific. Um, so you can find me then, and then I'll probably be doing a shorter stream tonight since I did a couple hours this afternoon, and then I'll raid into Max LP 80 tonight. As long as we're waiting, let's give a shout out to. And yeah, so Nolan does a 1900s dead ball save and a 1979 Mariner save. And Max, let's give Max a shout out. Max is doing bronze and silver tournaments and does play by play for the tournaments he's in. So very different streams from what I do. So you get a lot of variety in the late night hours on the West Coast here. I know doing weird things in the base game isn't everyone's cup of tea, so definitely check out Nolan and Max too. All right, looks like Nolan is up. So before we leave, let me give. I have to do a cool down on the shout outs. And oh, it's gonna be a minute, so let's just raid you all in there. But follow Max, check him out. Late nights, I think was it Wednesdays, Thursdays, and Friday nights, Max? He has rapidly become one of the better bronze and iron tournament players. So watching him do roster builds and watching his teams play definitely help you learn to be a better tournament player. So let's go raid now into the Nolan Network podcast. And thank you all for spending time with this afternoon. Hopefully you enjoyed the content. And you know where to find me, 10 p.m. most nights if you're interested in more. Also, my VODs are always available. And I've exported most of them to YouTube as well, especially the older ones that have disappeared from Twitch. So you can always find them there. The whole reason I'm streaming initially was to just create VODs I can export easily. All right. Send you all over.